Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 766,000 practitioners of common sense, lovers of all things good, and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. Let's talk about The Flash. I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying that this film has been a bit of a problem, and I'm not even talking about Ezra Miller yet. The DCEU iteration of The Flash was announced almost 10 years ago, and a lot has happened since then, including with The Flash going through almost as many directors as Kathleen Kennedy. Speaking of her, they hired Phil Lord and Chris Miller to direct The Flash, and lost Chris Miller and Phil Lord, who went on to get fired from Solo and then make Miles Morales movies. After that, they hired Seth Grahame-Smith, and then they lost Seth Grahame-Smith. Following that, they hired Rick Famuyiwa, and then they lost Rick Famuyiwa. Not to worry, the brain trust at the WB at that time, which was America's dumbest company, was just getting started. Then they hired Joby Harold to do a page one rewrite. Then it was time for Warner Brothers to get serious about a director for The Flash, because most studios go through 4 directors before they settle on a 5th. They asked Robert Zemeckis, who conveniently came down with a scheduling conflict. Not to worry, they have Ben Affleck in-house. He's not going to say no, but he did. After that, they were rejected by the likes of Sam Raimi, Matthew Vaughn, Mark Webb, and Jordan Peele. Warner Brothers finally got some good news because they hired John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein. Then they lost John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein. It was time to go back to the drawing board, and this time Ezra Miller was going to take the reins and write a script with Grant Morrison, which Warner Brothers turned down. Warner Brothers finally settled on It director Andy Muschietti. What's up, Quarter Black?
Yo, it's Andy Muschietti.
Oh, it's Andy Muschietti.
Yeah.
Not Muschietti.
Nope.
Gotcha. Sorry, Andy Muschietti. Which, to be fair, on the surface sounds like a good decision until he brought on Christina Hodson, the writer of the disaster Birds of Prey. And the problems don't end there. I'd be remiss not to mention the hiring of James Gunn, the reboot of the DCEU into the DCU, and the firing of Henry Cavill, followed by the flop Black Adam and the flop Shazam. And they still have a year left of lame duck films, including The Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman 2 with Amber Turd. And if all this wasn't enough, this brings us to The Flash's star, who's playing himself twice, Ezra Miller.
Learn it? Did you want to fight? Is that the deal?
Whoa, bro.
Fight?
This is a message for the Beulahville chapter of the North Carolina Ku Klux Klan. Look, if y'all want to die, I suggest just killing yourselves with your own guns. Okay?
Hawaii County Police Department arrested and charged Miller with disorderly conduct and harassment following an incident in a karaoke bar in Honolulu on Sunday night.
A couple in Hilo have filed a temporary restraining order against Hollywood actor Ezra Miller after Miller allegedly barged into their bedroom.
A guy in that bar declared himself as a Nazi. I have it on film, and he attacked me. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to not be unlawful. Hey, you just touched my penis. Please don't do that.
That they alleged Ezra was grooming their daughter, Takata Iron Eyes, and has been doing this since Takata was 12 years old.
Another parent comes forward with allegations against the actor. According to the Daily Beast, a Massachusetts mother and her now 12-year-old child were granted a temporary harassment prevention order against the 19-year-old actor.
Well, more trouble for actor Ezra Miller. Miller has been charged with felony burglary in Vermont. This is the latest in a string of recent incidents involving the embattled star of The Flash.
Claims against embattled actor Ezra Miller continue to mount. In a new report by Rolling Stone, a Hawaii father says he is concerned for his 3 children who are staying with their mom on the actor's farm in Vermont. The father claims there are guns and marijuana easily accessible to them.
I know what you're thinking, dear viewer. If any of us did all of that, we'd be in jail, but we don't have Ezra Miller's Hollywood privilege and his ability to describe half the producers in Tinseltown's junk. And that's why you haven't seen any press from Ezra Miller, and the only time he will be showing up is today at time of recording at the red carpet for The Flash, only to take photos. So after 10 years, 6 directors, multiple writers, and multiple release dates, The Flash has finally arrived. So how was it? I have no idea, I haven't seen it yet. But through the magic of editing, I have now seen The Flash. Was it the absolute triumph some critics made it out to be? No. Is it better than Black Adam, Shazam 2, all the Disney Marvel produced Phase 4, or the MCU and Antifa Man Commie Mania? Yeah, the best thing I could say about The Flash, despite a couple of huge obstacles that we'll get to, is at least this film tried to have fun. Unfortunately, it ended up being pretty generic and ultimately a hot mess. Is The Flash just a Batman movie? Because that's certainly what the marketing makes it look like. The answer is no, although the Batmen are the best thing in it. And I don't think it's going to help this film that it came out 2 weeks after Across the Spider-Verse, and it makes it just another multiverse movie, which quite frankly, I'm over. And if you hear anybody comparing this to Spider-Man No Way Home, just stop. It's nowhere near as good as that. The CGI is utter dog shit. It is some of the worst I have seen. It makes some of Marvel Phase 4's look good. Obviously, the CGI needed a lot more work, and it looks like Warner Brothers just came in and said, screw it, we're done. We're gonna cut our losses and hopefully we'll make some money back from what I am told is the most expensive movie ever made. Now, Flash's budget has been reported at $220 million. I have been told it's somewhere around $350. Again, in just the latest multiversal superhero film, and there are many more to come, Flash discovers he can travel back in time and change the events of his past. He goes back to save his mom. In doing so, he gets trapped in another reality with another version of himself and no metahumans, and the only person he can turn to is Michael Keaton's Batman, who he coaxes out of retirement to help rescue an imprisoned Kryptonian, who we are led to believe is Superman, but thanks to the trailers, we know it's Supergirl. And this is an alternate version of Kara Zor-El, who went to Ezra Miller's hairdresser. It is a bit unfortunate that the biggest problems with The Flash is The Flash, and not just one of them, two of them, both played by Ezra Miller. There is a current timeline Barry and a slightly younger Barry. One is supposed to be slightly less annoying, something they even mention in the film. Unfortunately, it doesn't make either of them any less annoying. Despite all of the past law breaking that Ezra Miller faced zero consequences for, even if none of that would have happened and he was a model citizen, he is horribly miscast as Barry Allen. Keep in mind, this is the first solo Flash movie, and while we do get his origin in a very different way, it shouldn't be very loosely, and I mean really loosely, adapting Flashpoint. At the very least, it should be the third movie of a Flash trilogy. It's something you build up to, kind of like forming the Justice League. The first Flash movie should be about the Flash and his supporting characters, showing his origin, and maybe fighting Professor Zoom / Reverse Flash. There is a lot of family drama, and it's okay. Like I said, it's pretty generic and forgettable. But the reason you're at this review is probably the same reason you're gonna go see The Flash in the first place. What about the Batman? Ben Affleck puts in an admirable appearance just in the beginning of the film with one really good Ben Affleck Batman action scene, and then he's gone. And about 40 minutes to an hour into the film, we get what we all came to see this movie for: Michael Keaton's Batman. And his stuff, for the most part, was pretty good. It was great to see the old Batmobile, the Batcave, the proper bat symbol. Wayne Manor pretty much looked the same. The Batplane looked great. Batman was flying around and kicking ass, something that Tim Burton couldn't do over 30 years ago. And I know you can sense this coming, but Michael Keaton's Batman is very much a supporting character, and him suited up as Batman isn't in it that long, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20. And while Michael Keaton mostly does a good job, there are moments where it looks like he's just collecting a paycheck, including repeating the lines from Batman 89.
You are?
Yeah. I'm Batman. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
The last line, when you see it in full context, is absolutely cringe. And if any of you out there have seen the now prophetic Birdman, it makes Michael Keaton's appearance in The Flash especially strange. Still, he was the best thing in it, but it wasn't enough to make it a good movie. On the contrary, I would argue that The Flash is the very definition of nostalgia bait. But you know what would have greatly improved The Flash, leading to a lot more money at the box office? Making it a Batman movie. This brings us to Sasha Calle's Supergirl, who had the potential to be the most cringe thing in this movie, and you know what? She wasn't. They didn't make her an insufferable girl boss. They actually made her a very minor character that was fine. and they showed reverence to Superman, and I would even argue her storyline reinforces Man of Steel, whether you like that movie or not. We did get to see Zod and Fiora, and they were completely disappointing and barely in the movie. Now, Zod's part in this is formidable. He's just not in it very long, and what completely distracted me was the floating head in what was clearly an animated body. And it doesn't sound like Michael Shannon had a very good time making the Flash. From The Hollywood Reporter on Twitter, Michael Shannon says returning to the role of Zod wasn't quote-unquote satisfying. Then he goes on to praise the criminal Ezra Miller. The actor explained that he feels multiverse movies make it seem like somebody playing with action figures. And he's not wrong. Again, the CGI is indescribably bad. What you've seen in the trailer is what you get in the movie, except it looks a lot worse in IMAX. The scenes where Barry is in the multiverse looks like he's sitting in the middle of a sports arena that turns into a blender of CGI gobbledygook. And I would argue that the worst thing, aside from two Ezra Millers in The Flash, are the cameos, which I believe were completely oversold. Yes, you already know about a lot of them unless you've been living under a rock, but most of them are blink and you'll miss it. But the vast majority of them are CGI animated. Think Leia and Tarkin from Rogue One, but 1,000 times worse. They really tried to marvel up this DC film. While there is a bit of a tragic ending, it gets undercut by really bad attempts at MCU humor, including the worst post-credit scene of any superhero film. And after watching The Flash, I have no doubt they'll be completely rebooting the DCU except for one character.
I mean, the first DCU character for sure is Blue Beetle. And the first full DCU movie is Superman.
What?
Now we're going to go into our very brief spoiler section. It's only going to be a couple of minutes, but if you have no intention of seeing this film, I'm going to tell you what you're not going to miss. You have been warned. Now, in the opening scenes, we have some members of the Justice League, including Batman, Wonder Woman, and Jeremy Irons' Alfred. And the Flash mentions he feels like the Justice League's janitor when he's sent by Alfred to go save some people in a hospital, including some babies. Now, I might have mentioned that the CGI is god-awful, and I'm doing that a lot because it is. A couple of these youngins look like the Ally McBeal dancing baby. Then there's the cameos: George Reeves' Superman, Adam West's Batman, Christopher Reeve's Superman, Helen Slater's Supergirl, the Jay Garrick Flash from the Flash TV show, but no Grant Gustin, the last appearance of what appears to be a rubber Henry Cavill, and yes, Nicolas Cage's Superman fighting a giant spider. And while that scene did look cool, all of the cameos, again, were CG, and it was just people looking at stuff. Hell, a couple of the cameos were essentially stills. And you know what? I might have been a little hard on Rogue One. I think the Flash's CG is a little closer to the Scorpion King. And if you think 2 Ezra Millers is bad, how about 3? That's right, there's another quote-unquote villain that's supposed to make us think of the Black Flash, played by Ezra Miller. The part of the movie that reinforces the Man of Steel is they cannot defeat Zod. They actually lose. Sasha Calle's Supergirl dies, and so does Michael Keaton's Batman. And ultimately, Barry realizes that there's just some things you can't change, including saving your mom. We also never find out within the DCEU who killed her. And then, after what would have been a pretty good tragic ending, they play it for laughs. They roll out George Clooney, and then there's that post-credit scene with Aquaman, which is terrible. By all accounts, The Flash was reshot multiple times, and it showed. But to be fair, the crowd I was with for a fan screening seemed to receive it positively. But to me, this thing was massively overhyped. I think you're going to hear a lot of people saying you need to turn off your brain for this one of Mahler's favorite sayings. The good news is I think there's little chance we'll see Ezra Miller playing the Flash again. The bad news is Ben Affleck was wasted again, along with Michael Keaton. And even though Sasha Calle's Supergirl wasn't bad, I still would have rather seen Superman. Was it woke? No. Was it filled with intersectional feminism? Not really. Not anything that would derail the film. The Flash did that all on its own. As Razorfist says, we are in the Fat Elvis stage of superhero films. The big difference here is Fat Elvis could still perform. And with the writer's strike and the actor's strike looming, leading studios like Disney to delay all of their films and look for other studios to follow, I'm not sure there's going to be an appetite for superhero films, even if that didn't happen by the time James Gunn gets around to rebooting the DCEU with Superman Legacy and The Authority. I am aware that some of the Flash's opening weekend box office projections are pretty low. $75 million, and I'm not sure I believe that, but I guess you have to ask yourself one question. Is Michael Keaton's Batman enough to neutralize two Ezra Millers? And in my opinion, it's not. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com.